This isn't a story about victory. It's a story about the end. About a boy who did one last right thing. This is the death of Spider-Man. To the world, a hero. To him, a daily fight to stay alive. For months, he'd been working with S.H.I.E.L.D., not out of duty, out of need. He wanted to learn how to be better, how to be smarter. Tony Stark took him under his wing, not as a mentor, as a test. He wanted to see if the kid had more than luck. Peter trained days, nights. Every mistake hurt, every lesson cut deep, but not everyone believed in him. Captain America didn't. He said the kid should be benched. Too young, too reckless, a teenager who didn't think his day would ever come. Those words stayed with Peter, longer than any wound. Somewhere else, inside a concrete cell that should have stayed sealed, Norman Osborn opened his eyes. He wasn't supposed to be alive, but Osborn always had a way back. Anger, fear, and a serum that refused to let him die. He rose, tore through steel, and from fire and screams came others. Electro, Sandman, Kraven, Vulture, and Octopus. Monsters once beaten by Spider-Man, now reborn to finish what he started. Peter knew nothing, just another night, another patrol, another chance to do the right thing. But normal life was already gone. Every lesson, every punch, every victory was leading to one day. The day Spider-Man would die. Explosions flashed over New York that night. S.H.I.E.L.D. alerts screamed across every channel. Something was happening, but no one knew what. Spider-Man was in Queens when everything began to fall apart. He saw fire rising over Manhattan, heard the sound of battle. At the same time, Norman Osborn was already moving. He gathered them, the Sinister Six. Osborn told them this would be the day Spider-Man dies, not as a mission, as destiny. And then, something broke. Otto Octavius said no. He no longer felt hate. He didn't want revenge. He wanted to go back to science. He said they should be proud, because together they created Spider-Man. Osborn only smiled. That smile was the end. Fire. Ray J leaped through the glass, a fight in the air, metal against flame, steel bent under the pressure, then silence. Dr. Octopus didn't get back up. The city was falling apart. Bridges burning, explosions, orders shouted through static, chaos everywhere. Peter was already moving when Mary Jane called. The news showed it. Norman killed Octavius. This wasn't a hunt anymore. It was an execution. On the Queensboro Bridge, another blast lit the night. Peter got there as fast as he could. Then, a flash in the dark. The Punisher aiming at Captain America. Spider-Man leapt, pushed Cap away, and took the bullet himself. He fell. Seconds felt like forever. He stood up again. He always did, but this time every step was heavier, every breath shorter. No one was waiting. No one helped him. He could have gone to a hospital. He didn't. He turned back to Queens, because that's where his family was, and Norman was already on his way. The night was quiet, but only for a moment. Then the ground beneath the Parker house began to shake. They emerged from the darkness, Norman Osborn in front, followed by Sandman, Electro, Kraven, and Vulture. The Sinister Six, monsters who no longer remembered the word human. On the street stood Johnny Storm and Bobby Drake. two silhouettes in the glow of streetlights, ready for something they couldn't stop. Fire tore through the night. Johnny ignited. His body turned to flame that exploded toward Osborn. The creature staggered back. The blast hit with such force that the goblin crashed to the asphalt. For a moment, he stopped moving. Sandman moved instantly. A wave of sand spilled across the street, pushing through the fire, smothering it. The earth itself wrapped around Johnny, choking out the light and pulling him down. The flames died. Bobby answered with ice. Waves of frost struck the sand, freezing it in place. For a heartbeat, it looked like he might hold them back, but Electro was already aiming. Lightning ripped through the air. It hit Iceman, shattering his frozen wall. Bobby fell, electrocuted, unable to move. Then a shadow emerged from the mist, unsteady, slowed, but unbroken. Spider-Man. The mask was torn, the suit soaked in blood. A bullet lodged deep in his side, but every step was a choice. He knew he couldn't stop. He looked at the ruined street, at Johnny lying still, at Bobby among shards of ice, and then at them. Electro raised his hand. Sparks cut through the air. Peter moved. The monster staggered for a moment as electricity crawled across the ground, drawing lines of light through the asphalt. Then, a gunshot. Short, sharp. A single bullet pierced the night. Electro was hit square in the chest. In a split second, his body burst into light. The surge spread outward, shocking Sandman, Craven, and Vulture. They all fell, paralyzed by the blast. Peter turned toward the sound. On the porch stood Aunt May, the gun still in her hand. The Sinister Six lay in silence. Only Norman Osborn was still breathing, and in that moment, he began to wake up. Norman moved. Fire lit up his eyes again. The monster was alive. Peter led Aunt May and Gwen to safety, told them to stay. Then he turned back, alone. Every breath was pain. Blood soaked the suit. Every step stole another piece of his strength. But he kept moving, because he had to. The goblin struck first. Fire met web. Power against will. Peter fought with everything left in him, until nothing was left to give. Then, a flash. Johnny Storm rose again. Flames roared across the street. For a moment, it looked like hope. But it wasn't. Osborn absorbed the fire. Every spark made him stronger, taller, faster, unstoppable. Johnny fell, drained and broken. Peter was alone again. The street burned around them. The air itself felt heavy with the end. And then, the sound of an engine. Tires screamed. A truck tore through the smoke and hit the monster head-on. Metal met flesh. Goblin crashed to the ground, pinned under the wreck. Behind the wheel, Mary Jane. Peter pulled her out, pushed her to safety. Then he turned back to the wreck, his body barely standing, his hands shaking. He grabbed the truck, once, twice, again. Every blow was a scream of rage, of pain, of everything he had left. The metal groaned. The engine hissed. Then, ignition. A blinding flash. The explosion swallowed the street. The blast threw Peter to the ground. Fire rained from the sky. Smoke filled his lungs. The world fell silent. He lay there surrounded by flame and ruin. His body broken, but his eyes calm. He'd done it. He'd saved them. The monster didn't rise again. Norman Osborn died in the fire, and Peter Parker, the boy who never stopped standing up, gave everything he had to save everyone else. "You're safe," he whispered, And then he was gone.